All right. So on the left, you see just yeah, pretty much unmanaged land, and on the right, you see a civil pasture. The civil pasture requires a little more work, a little more effort, but you can take land that you're basically no possible way you can make any kind of money with, and you can turn it into an income source. It's also more aesthetically pleasing. But it doesn't start with what's on top of the ground. It really starts with understanding what's inside the ground. Okay, there's a difference between dirt and soil. A lot of people think it's pretty much the same thing, but soil contains microorganisms, decaying organic matter, earthworms, and other insects. And basically, dirt doesn't. Dirt does not hold nutrients and water and all the things. That's when I say something about living soil versus dead soil. Living soil is soil. Dead soil is just dirt. Okay. Everybody that pretty much got out of elementary knows that, carbon dioxide in the sun, how plants use that. But what goes on under the ground is probably a little less understood. Uh, like organic matter, like compost. You think it's compost is actually feeding the plant, and actually it does, but it doesn't. It actually feeds the fungus and bacteria, and and the bacteria and fungus actually is what feeds the plant. They break down the minerals to where the plant can uptake the minerals. But the fungus and bacteria are also eaten by earthworms and insects and other things. And it's a symbolic relationship between all of them. It's an ecosystem. And this ecosystem under the ground is the difference between soil and dirt. Because there's life inside of actual soil. Okay, and the deciduous forest food web. This basically shows how everything that we just looked at going on under the ground affects what is going on above the ground also. And you can pause this and, look and see what's going on with that. But it everything goes together. That's really the main point I'm trying to stress right now. Everything goes together. So basically, the life you have in the soil affects the life you have above the soil. Okay, and this is pretty much what you left with around most of the southeast, mid-south, pretty much from Florida to Texas. After logging and, everything that took place, this is the kind of land you left with. You see, there's nothing at the forest floor. There's a limited amount of sunlight penetration through the canopy. And the ecosystem is minimized on what could sustain in the ecosystem. And because the forest floor is covered in leaves, and actually those leaves are not even decaying, that is part of the problem. So basically, you end up with it throws off the ecosystem a little bit, and it leads to other problems. That's where, the standing water, mosquitoes, and stuff like that comes from. Because basically, these are like smaller trees, invasive species. It just basically filled in the gaps and grew in over time. And basically, there is a more productive way. And basically, going back to how things were, a couple hundred years ago, before basically they logged the whole country pretty much from the east coast to west. And it's not just the logging industry. Farming, logging, agriculture. Anytime you clear land, especially in the South, something is going to go back. I mean, I'm pretty sure that happens anywhere, but in Arkansas, yeah, you leave a bare spot for like a couple weeks, something is going to fill in that spot. And here's where I'm at with the current project I'm working on. This is in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. It's on, I guess, about 31st and Main Street, Pine Bluff, Arkansas. And you can see I've done a lot of cutting, thinned it out quite a bit, burned through some, but this is still in process. I did plant multiple species of forage, including grain, rye, wheat, oats, and mix of brassicas. I want to say some Austrian peas in there also. Uh, but the reason for this is it's forage for the deer. It provides green manure, so you have a layer of green composting material on top of the ground, after you cut it down. And yeah, the next step after this is more than likely going to be some kind of type of livestock, but you do have to have a forage base for the livestock first. And I'm working my way towards a savanna. Understory restoration in longleaf pine ecosystem. This is exactly what I'm talking about doing to an extent, because they're doing this for totally different reasoning, but we're talking about doing the same thing just for different reasoning. But you see, the understory, there is life in the understory. There's plants growing, there's flowers. It's a better ecosystem than just a whole dead understory with no life in it. And this is an illustration of some of the benefits of regenerative land practices versus conventional industrial agriculture. More ground cover, more roots, more carbon stored in the soil, more water retention in topsoil, recovering groundwater levels, less erosion, more biodiversity, and less carbon in the atmosphere.